On this week's episode of the WNP podcast, we wrap up our draft rankings with arguably the deepest position group in the draft. Stay tuned. Episode 170 of the We're Not Professionals podcast. I'm your host, Mike Mitchelson, and joining me today, as always, my co-host, Chase Crawshaw. How you doing today?
I'm doing swell. Thank you for asking. It was sunny when we started recording our first show, though, and now it's a bit darker, so the sun's out, but still nice enough weather, I think. I don't know. I can't feel it. Well, how are you, Mike?
I'm doing fantastic, and happy Easter to all of those listening. We hope you had a great Easter Sunday, spent time with family, friends, however you celebrate Easter. We hope it was fantastic for you. Today is such a great day and such a great episode to be recording. Chase, you and I have been on a long journey of going through just a ton of prospects for this upcoming 2023 NFL draft, and it's been a fun ride, yet a long ride, and finally, we're able to cap off our draft ranking shows. However, that doesn't mean we're done when it actually comes to watching film and doing scouting.
No, it does not. I'm 155 graded players in. I've watched and have notes on more, but 155 graded players. I am expecting myself to get to 200 by the time the NHL draft rolls, or NFL draft, excuse me, by the time the NFL draft rolls around, because I want to have a firm idea on, everyone's getting taken. It's obviously going to be probably 40, 50 guys with grades on that get taken, because there's always guys that are, not projected as draft picks based on consensus that go. So I just want to have an idea as many as I can, especially on guys the lines might hit on, since that matters, very near and dear to me. So I'm going to keep it rolling, so that way once we get through, through the draft, we talk about, our team's draft and drafts in general, we can have some pretty good knowledge.
Yeah, I'm at 146 right now. I'm just hoping to hit 180. I feel like once we get to, the seventh round, teams are going to be shooting from the hip, getting your special teams guys, doing all kinds of stuff that, it's players we're not even going to have a remote idea on. So if I can just get a good idea on 180, that'd be fantastic. I'm really excited to get back to the offensive position groups because it's been a while since I've taken a peek at those, especially this wide receiver class. There was a couple of names that have kind of popped up in my viewing, and I'm excited to go look at some of those guys as well. But today, like I mentioned, going to be capping off our draft rankings with the defensive backs. However, before we do that, we do quickly want to talk about some AFC North wide receivers, starting with Odell Beckham Jr. He signs with the Ravens a one-year deal, $15 million guaranteed, with up to $18 million for the former All-Pro.
So last year it was talked about that he didn't want to sign a deal unless he's getting $20 million or whatever. And I figured, okay, he's never playing the NFL again with that number. But he got pretty damn close, up to 18 with 15 guaranteed. I was surprised. It's been, by the time he plays, like 18 months since he played an NFL snap. So it's a lot of money to give to a guy who was coming off of, a pretty significant injury. But more power to the Ravens. Why sign your franchise quarterback when you can sign an older receiver coming off of injury, right?
Yeah, I mean, OBJ will turn 31 this November. And I just think about it all. $18 million for a guy who is past his prime and is coming off a horrible injury and hasn't played in 18 months, or sign your MVP quarterback. That's a tough decision, and I get why the Ravens went the way they did.
Oh, absolutely. It makes a ton of sense. And honestly, though, like reality, if this is what they're doing, I got to assume that they either think they're going to get Lamar back or they're going to be able to trade him and get a competitive quarterback, like not go for a rebuild, right? Because otherwise this would make no sense.
Yeah, it would feel that way. And I saw someone say, is this their plea to get Lamar Jackson back? And, that could potentially be possible. But at the same time, if you're going to go spend $15 million guaranteed, on a player to say, hopefully Lamar comes back. Why not use that $15 million towards Lamar's contract? Why not offer him $15 million more than what you are, $18 million more than what you are? Like, just go sign Lamar. Don't sign other people to hope he sees that and go, oh, I actually like that weapon a decent bit. Like, no, come on.
Yeah, I agree. Because at the end of the day, a 5-year deal, you're giving him an extra $50 million. It's still $3 million a year. Or if it's a 6-year deal, you give him 18. Still, again, $3 more million. So it makes a difference. It's a little surprising to me, but I don't know. The Ravens can Raven all they want. I'm not. They're not someone I'm overly concerned with. The only annoying thing is, I'm a big Rashad Bateman guy, and if he's going to get the Hollywood treatment and not really be given the opportunity to be a true feature receiver, I'm going to be annoyed.
Yeah, I'm okay with it if the Ravens are willing to go out and do this and not focus on their franchise quarterback Lamar Jackson. As a Bengals fan, I'm happy with what they have done up to this point in free agency, and got a little insight from Zim Hude on Twitter. Zim isn't a profound reporter or anything like that, but he takes his job very seriously, and he's made connections within the Bengals group, and he tweeted out today, got 5's deal done, now got to get 9 done, which makes you think, okay, T. Higgins, potentially a deal done. I took it as, yes, that's happening. I know a lot of people saw it, and they're a little bit more questionable. Who's this Zim guy? I've been following him for a couple years. I know what his work has been like. Well, ML Football on Twitter tweeted out, Cincinnati Bengals star wide receiver T. Higgins is represented by the great David Mulageta?
I don't know. I haven't seen this, so I have no idea.
Sorry for butchering the name. Well, T. Higgins quote tweeted that today and said, the best. So that makes me feel like likely we have a T. Higgins deal done, just waiting for announcement. And I did see some people saying maybe they're waiting until they can get Joe Burrow's deal done as well so that they can announce them together, which how fantastic of a day that would be if a Bengals fan woke up and saw Joe Burrow and T. Higgins back on long-term deals.
That'd be pretty cute, wouldn't it?
Oh, I'd be so excited.
We'll see.
What do you think about T. Higgins being done here? Well, likely being done here.
So it's weird. When he was drafted, I was like, I like T. Higgins. I don't know if I like him, as first pick in the second round. Like I think he could be a solid pro, but I don't know how I feel about him. But in his first year, I saw him play a couple games. Like, all right, I never mind. I changed my opinion. I'm in on this dude. I was a little bit wrong. I think he's a first round talent, and since then, I still feel the same way. I love T. Higgins. I think he is an awesome receiver that a lot of teams would feel comfortable having as their number one, but the fact that he can be their number 2 and really be the exact opposite of Jamar Chase when it comes to skill set, like it's such a great duo that combines with one of the league's best quarterbacks. It works very well. It must be nice to be a Bengals fan and have that talent. Granted, it's going to be super exciting here for the Lions in the next couple of years as well, but you get a top 3 quarterback in the league and then 2, my opinion, top 10 receivers. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, and to finally see some success has been a lot of fun, and I can't wait for you Lions fans to feel that as well. You've seen a little bit over the last couple of years with Dan Campbell coming in, an exciting stretch to the end of the season last year, and surely an exciting free agency thus far. So it's going to be a good time to be a Lions fan, good time to be a Bengals fan, and, yeah, I mean, that's just how it is.
Well, yeah.
Well, yeah, that's just how it is.
That's
funny. But I do want to hop into our defensive back discussion because we went a little long last episode covering 2 groups, and again, we're covering 2 groups this time as well. Corners, safeties. It's going to be a fun episode. Chase, let's start with corners. What do you think about the corner class overall? Is it top heavy, not a lot of depth? Do you see a lot of depth? What do you think about the position?
So I think the corner group itself is pretty strong. I've got the number I told you was 14, correct? In my for corners, I got 14 corners in my first 2 rounds. So that's a pretty strong feeling overall for it. I think that the group is looking pretty good. I think there's a couple guys that have legitimate number 1 potential on teams, and then some other guys that are very high end cornerback 2s. And then I obviously have some guys that I'm not as high on, maybe more number threes or depth pieces. But I think that, for what my top guys are, I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, and I think you said that the 14 were in the first 2 days, right? Not the first two
Yeah.
rounds? Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Saying that's what I meant to say.
Yep, just wanted to clarify. I love this corner class. However, I was extremely high on Sauce Gardner last year. I don't think that any of these guys are that level. However, I still think that you're going to have quite a few bona fide corner ones. I think it just might take a little bit longer for them to really reach the ceiling that we saw out of Sauce already. Like, he played fantastic as a rookie. So overall, really love this corner class. I've got 11 through my first 2 days, and I've got 4 first rounders. So it's an exciting class, that's for sure.
Yeah, and to kind of continue off of that, I had Derek Stingley as my number 1, who still had a very promising rookie season. Great rookie season compared to most corners, but obviously Sauce just played so well. And both guys I had ranked very highly, so it's going to be hard in future years to have a guy that can really top them. But my 1 and 2, funny enough, they're back to back in my rankings. Are 13th and 14th ranked in my class, so still a lot of high praise.
Oh yeah, absolutely phenomenal. So how we're gonna be doing this? We're gonna go over our top 8 corners right now. Then we're gonna get on to our top 5 safeties, and then at the end of all of our analysis, we will give you our top 10 defensive backs with the 2 groups combined. So Chase, let's start off top 8. Give me it, and then we'll talk about them.
So number 1, I got Devin Witherspoon out of Illinois. Number 2, I got Christian Gonzalez. For some reason, I wrote Arizona, but he's out of Oregon. Number 3, I got Emmanuel Forbes out of Mississippi State. Number 4, I got Joey Porter out of Penn State. Number 5, Deontay Banks out of Maryland. Number 6, Travius Hodges-Tomlinson out of TCU. Number 7, I have Cam Smith out of South Carolina. Number 8, I have Julius Brents out of Kansas State. Number 9, I have Sidney Brown out of Illinois.
We're doing 8.
Oh,
silly guy.
My bad. We're doing top 10 DBs. My bad.
Top 10 DBs. Silly.
Yeah,
silly friend.
I got my brain mixed up. Silly. Be nice.
No worries.
So there's my top 8.
My top 8 go as follow: Devin Witherspoon, number 1 out of Illinois; Christian Gonzalez, number 2 out of Oregon; number 3, Joey Porter Jr. out of Penn State; number 4, Deontay Banks out of Maryland; number 5, Cam Smith out of South Carolina; number 6, Tyreek Stevenson out of Miami; number 7, Keely Ringo out of Georgia; and number 8, Emmanuel Forbes out of Mississippi State.
Interesting. You got Keely Ringo in there? I don't have Keely Ringo in there. Interesting.
Yep. And I'm excited to talk about LaDainian Tomlinson's, what is it, nephew?
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I think it's his nephew.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so we'll talk about him when he comes up in your rankings, and I'm excited to talk about him. There was also another name that we didn't mention that has been getting a lot of praise as well. Maybe we talk about him a little later on before we get to the safeties, but that's the young man out of Michigan. But we'll start with Illinois' Devin Witherspoon. We both have him number 1. What do you like about him?
Yeah, dude, I think he truly is just like a really fun prospect. Why the heck is he so on my thing so word? I apologize, but yeah, I think he's a ton of fun. When you watch him play, he's got very strong skills when it comes to his cover ability. I think he's someone who definitely holds his own in the run game as well. The one downside, honestly, I have for him is measurables. He'd like to be a little bit heavier, like to have a little bit longer of a reach, a little bit bigger of hands, but it's not to the point where it's like, oh, this is a killer for him. But just things if you had a nitpick. But otherwise, I think he's just an elite cover guy. He's got nice hands. He can lay the boom. He's a great tackler. He just, for me, he's kind of the whole package you're looking for out of a DB1, minus the ideal size, which it's still solid overall.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Devin Witherspoon. He does all the things you want to see out of a corner coming in. Great zone coverage, great man coverage, can play really well against the run, a great tackler, and can really put the boom on people as well, even though he's 6'1", 180. I love him in zone coverage. I think that he reads the quarterback like no other corner does in this draft class. I think the one gripe that I have on Devin Witherspoon isn't even something that is his fault or can really improve on. You mentioned size. I also think that he's a great athlete. I would have liked him to be an elite athlete, and if he was, he might have hit that same ranks as the Sauce Gardners and the Derek Stinleys for me. And with that being said, I think he comes in day one and is a fantastic player. However, I'm unsure on where his ceiling potentially is. I think it's possible that he could be a top 10 corner in the league. However, top 5, I'm not too sure about that. I feel like the athleticism and the size needs to be there just a smidge more to get in that same stratosphere. But I could be wrong, and I hope I am, because Devin Witherspoon, as a player, as a kid, love him.
So really, for me, the only way he's not a team's cornerback one is if he goes to a team that already has a bona fide cornerback one. That's kind of how I see this. I think he could step in and almost immediately be that guy. I think it's all already there. I don't know how much. I think he has room to grow, but I don't think he grows a ton because I already think he has such a high end NFL skill set. And I agree with the athleticism part. I am as one of the better athletes generally in this class because he still is quite a good athlete. But if you're an elite athlete, he would have crossed that threshold to be a top 16 grade for me instead of just a first round grade for me.
Yeah, and we talk about Christian Gonzalez next. This is that guy who is an incredible athlete. In my eyes, I think the fluidity that he shows, the speed, size is pretty good. He's same height as Devin Witherspoon, but he's a little bit bigger when it comes to weight and everything, and it doesn't really look like it. He looks like he's a little bit skinny. I wouldn't mind seeing him put on another 5-10 pounds, but this is a guy who I think he lacks a little bit of overall physicality, but when it comes to coverage, I mean, he's got it all. He's so smooth, the hips, everything you want to see out of an elite cover corner. That's what I see out of Christian Gonzalez, and with that athleticism that he does possess, I think he could be one of those top 10, top 5 corners in the entire league.
I agree. I think the ceiling is there. I think it's a higher ceiling for Gonzalez. I think it's a lower floor than Gonzalez as well. So rank him to number 2. I still think Gonzalez could be a top 10 guy, or that Witherspoon could be a top 10 guy. That's what I meant to say here. But Gonzalez, I still think it's possible, and he could be a little bit higher. We'll see. When it comes to everything you said, I agree 100%. He is as close as you're going to get to a lockdown corner in this class. He does a very strong job. If you look at his college production, when you look at defensive players, it's sometimes hard to grade college production because it's not as easy as yards, completions, touchdowns, all that stuff. Because like a high end DB, maybe they're not getting the ball thrown to him a ton, or maybe a defensive lineman is used in a run defense role when he's really a great pass rusher. Like you just don't know. Both Gonzalez, the stats are there. Yeah, he was treated like a number 1 corner. He wasn't always targeted. When he lined up against a team's top receiver, they tried to avoid him, but when they did pass to him, he disrupted almost every single time. He went up and grabbed 4 balls. He had 7 passes defended. He had interception yards. Once the ball's in his hands, he can do pretty well as a returner too. So he has the numbers for a corner in college too, which you don't see a ton. And it was evident on film that this is something that just a little bit more work, refine a couple things, and he could skyrocket.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but these two for me stand above the rest. I still have 2 more first-round picks in my cornerback class, but the grade difference is pretty decent when it comes to first-round grades. Devin Witherspoon, Christian Gonzalez, my top 2 easily. I don't really think another player makes the case to be top 2 and boot one of these guys down.
No, and Emmanuel Forbes is my number 3, and he's ranked 26 in my class. For these guys, are ranked 13 and 14. And it is, for my grading scale, it is a pretty, strong difference. Like these guys are clear cut. If anybody else goes above these 2, I think a team's just making an obvious mistake.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, you mentioned Emmanuel Forbes. Let's talk about him now.
Yeah, man. So when I was coming into it, I really didn't know a ton about Emmanuel Forbes. Before I started watching, I ended up coming across kind of his combine numbers and kind of the day he had. And, it really is impressive. He is a very strong athlete. He ran a 4.35. He's got that speed. He, tested very well in terms of his, his broad jump. His 10-yard split was explosive, one of the best in the class. He's just, in my opinion, the best athlete of these corners that I have that are ranked here. The one problem, dude weighed in at 166, which is just absolutely tiny, and that sucks. Especially, like Devontae Smith last year. he was obviously light. But for me, it's different with a receiver because you're not the one that's making the tackles, you're the one that's getting tackled. So as long as you have good enough core strength and you can brace for the hit better, you'll be fine. Whereas a DB, he's the one that's laying the hit. You got to deliver the force. You're not the one taking it. So you have to try to deliver, and leverage that size. And it's tough, but everything else he has, dude, I have almost everything as basically as high as you can get, minus his size and tackling. He is top 3 in every single other category, 1 in a couple. Had the high end college production. I think that if he can find a way to add 10, 15 pounds without sacrificing too much athleticism, I think he has absolute superstar all pro potential. I just, everything I saw in film, I absolutely loved. And if you put him in a 6'2", 200-pound build, I think it'd be unquestionable. He would be safely DB1 top 10 pick.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the problem for me is you talked about adding 10, 15 pounds. I'm not sure his frame can hold all of that. We'll see when he gets to the next level. Obviously, they're going to try to beef him up a little bit. I mean, coverage ability is fantastic. Like you were talking about, the mirroring ability that he's able to do, the fluidity in his hips, everything like that is fantastic. When you look at zone coverage, man coverage, he did it all. I think the biggest problem for me is just the physicality part of it. I mean, you barely saw him press whatsoever. When it comes to playing the run, tackling, it wasn't great. And how I put it was, I said he is the Slim Reaper of cornerbacks, which I think is true. But whereas Devonta Smith was able to shine with his small weight, they're two different positions. I mean, the wide receiver, they need to go up, catch the ball, and try to score a touchdown. Whereas the main portion of a cornerback's role is to stop the other player, and to stop them, you need to be physical. You need to tackle well. So I still have him in my top 8. I still have him as a top 64 pick. I've got a day 2 grade or a round 2 grade on him. I think he is fantastic when it comes to his coverage ability. It just worries me with how skinny he truly is, because if you can't tackle someone, you're not really going to hold up that well. However, I will say, I didn't mention when I was talking about him, he is a ball hawk, which is also very exciting. Yeah,
dude. He was awesome from Mississippi State. He really was. And even if he is smaller, I still think he comes in and is immediately a team's top 2, potentially on a weaker team, a top 1. And he still finds a way to get it done. If it, we mentioned T. Higgins during the show. When it comes to trying to tackle a guy like T. Higgins, he isn't like a trucker. He's just, he's got a nice solid build. You might have a bit of trouble with those guys. If you have to, get into the box and try to tackle Derrick Henry, good luck. But any smart team won't use him that way. Any smart team will let him add the weight, add the strength first, use him just in those coverage, schemes, and find a way to make him have success. And if they use him that way, like I just said, I think, yet again, another guy that can go to the moon.
Yeah, and I was thinking about having to cover DK Metcalf. That wouldn't be fun. We all know how crazy DK Metcalf is as an athlete, just his pure size and strength. So that wouldn't be the most fun matchup. But again, NFL teams, at least we hope NFL teams aren't stupid and they'll know how to play their players. And if you're taking a guy like Emmanuel Forbes in the second round, or even in the first round, if a team really loves him that much, then they absolutely should not be playing him in that type of role. So we'll see how everything goes there. But from one end to the other, let's talk about Joey Porter Jr. He is my number 3. Joey Porter Jr. is huge. Very long, coming in at 6'2", 198. His arms are wild. The length that he has is fantastic. One downside for him is I don't think he's incredibly athletic, at least when you watch him on tape, but he did run a 4.46 at the combine, which was very solid. He's got a fantastic press coverage. His arms, his punch, the way he battles those first 5 yards, he knocks off the timing like no other in this class, and timing is everything when it comes to wide receivers' routes. I think there is at times where if a player is coming inside, whether it's a slant, whatever it might be, he tends to lose those routes quite a bit, but with his length and speed, he's able to continue to be within the play. This is a guy who's just pure man coverage. I don't expect anyone to take him and put him in zone, but the way he's able to battle with big receivers, him going up against the T. Higgins would be an awesome battle. I'd be very excited to see that. So this is my number 3.
Yeah, and I've got him as my number 4, but he is my first player outside looking in for the first round. So he's my highest graded day 2 player, which means if something very slightly was tweaked, legitimately something was very slightly tweaked, he would jump into the first round. Like, he's very close. But for me, what it comes down to is I think he could, have some better ball skills, maybe be a bit of a better tackler, maybe help out a little more in the run game. But everything else, I'm not really too concerned because I think he is pretty well rounded. I really do. I think he has the athleticism to have success. I agree, with the sentiments that you just echoed there. A team using him in the right way, just use him in that man. I think he's going to have success. If really he just improves on that tackling bit and he can help out in the run game, and I think that it's another guy who should be a DB1. And am I going to be mad if the team takes him in the first round? No, because at the end of the day, there's 31 first-round picks this year. I have 30 guys ranked in my first round in total. So with him being first one out, he's my 31st player. So I'm not going to be mad if the team takes him in the first round. I can understand it. Like, he's got enough skills there that if you take him as your number 1 DB for the future, I don't think you're going to be worrying too much.
Yeah, and one thing that you say a lot, Chase, is if you show flashes or the ability to be able to do something at the college level, at that next level in the NFL, you just want to see them become more consistent at it. I think Joey Porter has shown flashes of being good in the run game, has shown flashes of being a good tackler. It was very inconsistent while he was at Penn State, but I think with who his dad is and how much prestige he comes in with that name, Joey Porter Jr., I think if he goes to the right system, it's going to work out fantastic. And I hate to say the Baltimore Ravens because anytime you think of a top defensive prospect that just needs a little bit of work, a little bit of refinement, it always goes to the Baltimore Ravens because of how good they are at producing these type of players. But Joey Porter going there would skyrocket his value in my mind.
I agree. I think that could be a very strong, support system for him in terms of developing and getting himself to that next level. I agree.
All right, well, let's go to my number 4. We talked about your top 4, and we're going to even hit on your 5 now because I believe you have Deonte Banks number 5. He is my number 4 out of Maryland. This guy's just pure speed. Like, he is so incredibly fast. His man coverage is awesome. He's very good in the press. I think that there's a lot of things that he can improve on when it comes to consistency, but he's shown some elite flashes at the level that he is. He's got incredibly quick change of direction, which allows him to play well in zone as well as obviously man when it comes to mirroring. I think generally he needs to become a better player when it comes to his ball skills. I mean, he is not very good in that aspect of the game. You'll have a ball thrown right in his breadbasket and he'll drop it. So wish that was a little bit better. And then, of course, he's a little bit smaller too. So wish he was better at going up against the run, tackling. But overall, I think he comes in a tier of his own under, a tier 3 of his own, in my opinion. And it's because he's good in coverage. He's got that speed. He's got that acceleration and change of direction. I like him.
Yeah, and I forgot about Deonte Banks, my athletic grade at him. So I lied when I said Gonzalez. Deonte Banks is actually my number 1 athlete at the corner position and one of the top 5 athletes in his class for me because I think he has great transition skills. He's obviously a burner. I think he moves very well laterally. He does everything you need from a guy who's in an athletic position. And again, I'm going to agree with a lot of what you said. When it comes to our grades, are obviously just slightly differently on how we value some things. His ball skills are they're just poor to me. Like, he's really got to find a way to improve that, find a way to kind of catch more balls in the NFL if he ever wants to be, viewed as that true number 1. Right now, I see him as being a very elite number 2 who has some, cornerback 1 upside. But it is awesome that he is, he does a very good job in the in the run game for me. I think he tackles very well. He's kind of plays like a linebacker with his mindset, but he has that DB build. So someone that you're never going to want to take off the field. He's going to be very impactful for you, and he could be a very strong value for you in the second round.
Yeah, 100% agree. Let's now go to my number 5. I hate to keep, jumping your guys. But I mean, at this point, we're right on track with each other. So going my number 5, we've got Cam Smith out of South Carolina. I think this is my, you're going to have to help me out with the name, over in, or not Tampa Bay, with the San Diego Chargers or the LA Chargers right now, the smaller corner that we loved and not a lot of people did.
Why the hell did I had his name, then I forgot it.
I know, right?
When you just said it. Samuel.
Asante Samuel.
Oh my God.
Nice.
Asante Samuel. I almost called him a Monte. It's like, it's not a Monte. That's the word we're looking for.
Yes, Asante Samuel. I think Cam Smith is my Asante Samuel of this class. The guy who isn't necessarily being seen as some of the top guys, but I think he's really a great player. I'm a big fan of Cam Smith. I think already he's extremely sound when it comes to man coverage, and I think he is fantastic in zone coverage. The way he reads the quarterback is unreal, and I would love to see him in a zone-heavy type of scheme. Now, I don't think he is the most explosive athlete, but coming in with a 4.43 at combine, like, he gets it done. At the next level, he's going to be just fine when it comes to his athleticism. I think just the instincts overall, his elite tackling ability, I think everything's going to translate there. This guy, I think he's going to be one of those bend, don't break players. If he gives up a catch, so be it. They're not moving from the point he gives up that catch. Like, they're not getting an extra yard whatsoever. He's kind of like a bulldog. He's going to be all over the field. He's going to hit you, and you're not going to be able to break his tackles. So Cam Smith, one of those guys like Asante Samuel for me. I've got him higher than a lot of people, and I think he's just a really good player.
So I have him as cornerback 7, but I still have him in the second round, which kind of speaks to how I view this cornerback class. And for me, it could have been comparative to play. It could have been who they were playing, but there wasn't a ton of reps of games that I watched where he got targeted a bunch. So it was hard to grade, but that's a great thing. If you're not getting targeted, it means you're locking down guys. So when it comes to the coverage, you can see that he's clearly forcing quarterbacks to kind of look their direction. And when it did come his way, like he made plays. He really did. I'd like to see him, get better with his ball skills. They're not like abysmal when it comes up and grabbing a ball out of the air, but it could be better. And he does a good job breaking up the pass as well. Like I wish I saw of the games I watched more film of him getting actual targets to see what he could do a bit more. But it also speaks very, very, very kindly or very nicely to kind of seeing him being kind of thought of that way. So hopefully it's similar going to the NFL. If a team is, that concerned about throwing to him, then that's obviously a great thing. It's always weird to say, oh, this cornerback only had 2 interceptions and 30 tackles this year, while he also only had 14 targets or whatever the hell it might be. It's because he was so shut down. And I think Cam Smith, after his rookie year, has the potential, if he ends up getting on the field like I hope he does and gets the opportunity. I think if he can really translate that over, I think the skill set's there, then he could be that type of guy.
Yeah, and I think I just have a bit of a soft spot for Gamecock corners as well. J.C. Horn, I absolutely loved him coming out of his draft class, only had Pat Surtain above him. And unfortunately, he hasn't been able to show the best of his ability in Carolina yet, and hopefully he does. But Cam Smith, another one of those Gamecock corners that I'm just a big fan of. So excited to see what he can do at the next level. But Chase, let's talk about your number 6 now.
Yeah. So at my number 6, Travius Hodges-Tomlinson, and this is an interesting character. What'd you have him ranked? But you had him in your top 8, didn't you?
No, I did not. He was my number.
Oh, I thought you did.
9.
Wow. I thought you did. Well, you're a weenie. So I can understand kind of the hate towards Hodges-Tomlinson because he's 5'8". He's small, and it's hard, to find success when you're going against a bigger guy, obviously with that frame. But going against smaller guys, even sometimes it's hard to find success. So for me, I think he's an outside cornerback. I really do. If he were average DB size, I think he'd be a lock to load a top 10 pick for me just based on his talent. But because of that size, it does affect his grading scale quite a bit for me. But he had, he had elite college production. He was doing the best he could when it comes to, making tackles, but he can only do so much. But He was great at catching. He was did his best in the run game. Was an elite cover. Is just absolute stud athlete. Like he was just a ton of fun to watch, really. And yeah, he matched up outside very well in college. Is it going to be able to do that in the NFL against better receivers? I don't know. It's kind of a wait and see. But he's not afraid. When he went up and did a little bit of run defending, like he'd run at the lineman, he'd run at he'd run at tight ends. Like he would happily embrace that physicality and did a better job than you would expect someone of that size to do. So it's going to be a bit tough to rationalize using him on the outside with that size. I understand. So what I'm hoping is a team spends a draft pick on him. Realistically, most teams are going to want to use him in the slot. So you can try him out in the slot, get him on the field early on, but give him the opportunities outside. See what he does. Give him some matchups where he's not going against a 6'3+ guy. Maybe if he goes against a 6-foot guy, I think he can make a play. So I think that there is very, very small potential he can be a team's cornerback one, just because I love his skill set so much. But I'm calling it so small because he's so small.
So me having him at number 9 is not being a hater whatsoever, because I still have a second round grade on him. I absolutely love Hodges Tomlinson. It's not just because he's LT's nephew, but I also think that we shouldn't shy away from putting guys in the slot or using them as nickel corners, because I wrote in my notes, the very first thing was Mike Hilton 2.0. And for those of you who haven't watched a lot of Cincinnati Bengals games, you probably don't know much of Mike Hilton. Used to be a Steeler, but this guy is one of my favorite players on the Bengals defense. The way he plays, he shuts down guys on the inside. He's only 5'9", and he's still able to shut down tight ends, which I think Hodges Tomlinson can do as well. He often played outside at TCU and was really good at it. He was left on an island and played very well, but I'm not sure how 5'8" is going to do on the outside at the next level. I mean, your average wide receiver height is, 6 foot, and it is shrinking a little bit, especially with this draft class, not having that many big guys. But I mean, I think he plays perfectly to be a nickel. You talked about how he kind of has that bulldog mentality where even though he's a smaller guy, when it comes to the run game, he's flying in there. And that's exactly what Mike Hilton does. I absolutely love the change of direction on this guy. The speed, I don't think, is fantastic, but the change of direction, the quickness, the acceleration, really nice. That's why I think he belongs on the inside even more so, because if he's going against the likes of a Jalen Hyatt or a Tyreek Hill going, just a straight route, I'm not sure he's going to be able to keep up. But if he's going against your Tyler Boyd's on the inside, he's absolutely going to be able to keep up at that point. So just overall, I think he's going to be a really nice, ratty nickel corner that is going to blow some people up because they don't expect a 5'8" guy coming and hitting them as hard as he does. And he's just got that great acceleration and change of direction to play in the middle of the field.
100%. I can agree with a lot of what you're saying, and I think he would thrive in the slot, but I still think he could play outside when and if needed, especially against certain guys. And, you talked about kind of comparing Emmanuel Forbes to Devonta Smith. We both kind of did. You called him, like, Slim Reaper of like defensive backs, and, it's whatever it was. And to me, with, my favorite book, thoughts on him, he's like Deuce Vaughn for defensive players for me, because I think Deuce Vaughn is the exact same way, just on the offensive side of the ball. And if he can have, the same impact I think Deuce Vaughn can, which they're both graded pretty similarly for me, then this guy's got a very nice ceiling as a very trustworthy DB for your team.
Would that count as one of the weird comparisons that we're looking at doing? Does that count, comparing him to another guy in the same draft class, just opposite side of the field?
It might, honestly, because like I don't know who the hell else does that, because it's definitely a bit weird to say it that way, but like in my opinion, it's true. I really do think that.
Mm-hmm. All right, my number 6 is Tyreek Stevenson out of Miami. I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting much out of Tyreek Stevenson. I saw some people floating him in their top 10, but I wasn't too sure on what I was going to see here. But I think he is easily the best man coverage corner in this class outside of those top 2-3 guys. Like, I think that Tyreek Stevenson, if you miss out on one of those first round corners and he's sitting there at 56, whatever it might be, you're a man coverage heavy defense, this is a guy you're going to go after. I think he's very good in man coverage, really good in press. I think he's fantastic when it comes to playing against the run and tackling. I think just overall, if you get him in the right system, you're going to be very happy. He's not this elite athlete that you're going to see out of Gonzalez and Deontay Banks. He doesn't have the length and the, just dominant press that Joey Porter does, but he's great when it comes to mirroring. He's that guy outside of your top four. Like, this is no consolation prize, but at the same time, it kind of is. So, I don't know. That's just how I see him. I think he's that number 2 tier when it comes to man coverage.
So I've got him as my corner 15 in the class, and I have him as my very first day 3 pick, someone I could rationalize being a day 2 guy as well. And he was like a 10th of a point from being a day 2 guy. And it's not to slight him. I just think that, I can somewhat agree on the coverage things. I think he is very strong, but I still have guys that are ranked higher than him outside of those top 2 in certain aspects. So I think he's very trustworthy. I think he's reliable all the way around, and he's a guy, even though I have him ranked in the 4th round, you could probably get day 1 contributions out of because he does everything at least well. I don't think he's quite elite yet, but I think he has potential to get there because I did see some signs of it. I just didn't see it, enough. So if he can continue to improve, I think, it could be a potential very strong value. And, one thing I did notice when I saw him with the ball in his hands, I think that if you use him as a returner, even though he's not an elite athlete, he seems like he could read the field pretty well. So, maybe that's another part of his game that a team could potentially use.
Yeah, and I don't remember who it was. Potentially could have been him, and you're seeing some great things out there. But I do recall one of these. Maybe it was DJ Turner, but one of these guys was actually a punt returner for their team. So Tyreek Stevenson, maybe he's got a role there as well. So yeah, I think he's just one of those really sound players. He's going to come in day 1. He's going to be able to help you, whether that be as a corner 3, potentially a corner 2. He's going to be able to help you. I don't think he's got a great ceiling. Like the next guy out on my list has a great ceiling. I don't think Tyreek Stevenson necessarily has that, but I think his man coverage and the way he handles the run is already at a very safe floor for the NFL.
Sure. I can say that's fine, but for me, like where I have him as safe, it's as like a contributor, not a 1 or 2. That's just where I've got him right now.
Yeah, I don't see him as a 1 right now either. But who do you have left? Do you have a 7 remaining, or are you sitting with only an 8?
I do have a 7 remaining.
All right, let's talk about him.
So, do we both have the same number 8, by the way? Is that we asked like that way, or is it
no?
Regardless.
No.
Okay. Well, regardless, my number 7, Julius Brents out of Kansas State, and he's just got an awesome build. 6'3", 198, has long arms, has good hands. He just what you truly want out of a number 1 corner in terms of size. When it comes to the athleticism, I think that could really improve. When it comes to his play rec, I could think it improve a little bit because I think he reacts a bit slowly. I think he's very evenly spread out when it comes to press, man, and zone. I think that they're all very good, not necessarily quite elite yet. It's something that he's going to have to continue to kind of improve on in the NFL, and his ball skills are kind of the same thing when it comes to his pass breakup. I think that he could do a better job just flat out kind of deflecting the pass away. When it comes to going up and actually grabbing a ball, I think he has super high end hands. So I think he can really go up and just make that incredible interception. Not the same as like Trayvon Diggs, but like Trayvon Diggs went up and he had those 8 picks last year, the year before, whatever the hell it was. I think he's got the hands where he can kind of do that, where his hands are just not good enough to be a wide receiver, but elite to be super high at the cornerback position. And then when it comes to wrapping up and helping out in the run game, I think he does a very strong job of that too. So I think he's somebody that maybe he could be like a kind of cornerback safety hybrid. Maybe he, like the nickel's just becoming such a prominent position in the NFL, trying to get as many DBs on the field as possible. I think he's just a guy you want to find a way to get him on the field.
So we tend to do this a lot, and I don't know why, but it always works out this way, where one of us will talk about a player and the other will not be a giant fan of them. And then the very next guy, it's vice versa. The other is a big fan. The other is not. So here we go. It's happening again. I've got Julius Brents as my number 15, similar to how you have.
Oh.
Yeah. Similar to how you have Stevenson. Julius Brents, I've got a day 3 grade on him. He is higher day 3 because, I mean, the size is fantastic. But here is word for word my notes on Julius Brents. A very big corner who is explosive with his first step and jump, but that's about it. He's a little slow and doesn't have fluid hips. He gets lost in coverage and doesn't do a great job tackling. His ball skills are okay, but that's about it. Everyone gets excited for a 6'3 corner, but they have to play like an actual corner, and Brents does not. Incredibly raw and would not be able to start day 1. That being said, he was playing against Quentin Johnston in one of the games that I was watching where he was just getting torched by Quentin Johnston, and it was one of Quentin Johnston's best games. And I still think he is very much worth a 4th round pick per se, because you look at guys who are big and are explosive athletes that don't have very good tape, and you look at the likes of Tariq Woolen, who is in the running for Defensive Rookie of the Year. So I think he's very much still worth a draft pick, but right now, you mentioned it, he's incredibly raw, and the tape that I saw of him, I was not excited about him whatsoever.
That's disappointing because I think he can be a very high-end number 2 and kind of used against the team's number 1 receiver, depending on who the number 1 receiver is. If he's going against, like, I can agree with the long speed. So that's why I'm saying if he goes against a bigger guy that doesn't have free speed like DK, and we'll keep talking about T. Higgins because that's just a great, kind of example. If he goes against that type of build receiver, I think that's where he starts to have a lot more success because he can go up and can, in those contested catch situations with the best of them. And generally the receiver comes down with that ball more often in the 50-50 balls, but I think he comes down with the ball more often than the receiver just because he can get up there. Like I think he's out jumping most players and he's got strong enough hands. They're not just body catches as a DB. They're up in the air, almost OBJ style. Like it's just absolutely fun to watch in that aspect. So as long as he can always be matched up against that type of bodied receiver, I think he's going to do a great job.
Yeah, and that's the hard thing is you're going to need, in my opinion, that receiver can't be a fantastic route runner because if he is, he's going to get lost. And that's just, and I don't even think Quentin Johnston's a fantastic route runner, but he left him in the dust quite a few times on the film, and it hurt me.
Quentin Johnston's still good. He's still a good athlete though. Like he's a better athlete than most receivers he's facing in college, and he'll still be better than a lot of receivers he faces in the NFL because Quentin Johnston, despite his size, is a very sound athlete.
Yeah, that's true. Anyways, it's going to be excited to see Julius Brents because, I mean, he's 6'3", 200 pounds. How do you not want to see that type of player succeed at the next level? I hope he does, and I hope he proves me wrong because what I've seen was not the biggest fan of him, but let's talk about a guy that you potentially could not be the biggest fan of, and that being Kelee Ringo out of Georgia. This is a guy who, coming into the draft process, he was seen as a bona fide day 1 player. I saw people talking top 15, potentially top 10, the number 1 corner in this class, Kelee Ringo. Not the case anymore. A lot of people dropping on him. I've got a day 2 grade on him. Kelee Ringo sitting at 6'2", 210. He's got the size to be a fantastic corner. His straight speed is fantastic. I really like the physicality that he has in his game, except he's one of those players that is incredibly raw. I think outside of his ability in the run game, as well as his tackling ability, I think he just needs to get better overall. I think he's better in zone coverage right now than he is in man, which is a little bit surprising because you look at his size and speed and you think, man, this guy should be a press man cover, like easily. But right now that doesn't seem to be the case. He tends to have some rougher routes when it comes to playing against good route runners. Like he is kind of all over the place. I see oftentimes he's caught looking back and forth between the receiver and the quarterback. And as he's doing that, he just loses his man. So I think overall he just needs to become a better coverage corner. But with the size, the speed, the strength he already plays with at the line of scrimmage against the run. I mean, this guy's got huge potential. I think that the potential could be a top 3 corner in this draft class if everyone hits their max ceiling. Could even be corner 1 in this draft class, in my opinion, with all the tools that he does have. But coverage ability and then a little bit of stiff hips and change of direction, that all needs to improve pretty greatly for him to actually hit that ceiling.
Yeah, I got him as my cornerback 14. Still a day 3 grade, or day 2 grade, I'm sorry, but like 3rd round, mid to late 3rd round. And nothing, against him. I think he, again, is very well rounded. Talked about that kind of with Tyreek Stevenson. I think that there's not a big flaw in his game. Like, he can do it all well enough. But I'd like to see it be more high end. At least find one aspect of the game that he can become, like elite in. That's really what I'd love to see. I'd like to see him, figure out a way, because his arm and hand measurables are pretty underwhelming. They're one of the smaller ones in the class. So I'd like him to figure out a way to kind of go up and break up more passes and catch more balls despite that. And if he can do that, that's going to help him significantly. I think that significantly improves and changes the ways that teams kind of target him or kind of look at him. I think that, honestly, if I had to say he starts week 1, I would say no. If a team's desperate, sure. But I think he's definitely much better off as a kind of longer term guy. Develop him, see what he can do, see if he can find at least one aspect you trust him in and put him out on the field. But there's just definitely other guys I'd much rather take.
Yeah, I agree. The floor is not the highest there, but I think the ceiling is too high to pass up on in the 2nd round, and that's why I've got a 2nd round grade on him. But we'll see if it works out, because when it comes to these type of project players, there's some big question marks. What team is willing to go after it? And I think that's going to be a big piece of it. If you go to a team that is not a great situation, you're going to have a tough time finding that ceiling. But if you go to a team that's really ready to embrace you as the player that you are and to continue to grow you in the aspects that you need the most help in, you're going to shine. So there was one player that I wanted to talk about before we moved on to the safety rankings, and that would be DJ Turner out of Michigan. I've seen a lot of love for this guy.
Hey, I don't get my number 8.
Did you not do your number 8 already?
No. Julius Ben's my number 7.
Yeah, but who's your number 8?
Sidney Brown.
I thought you said he was your number 9.
No, he's my number 8. He's my number 9 corner. Or number 9 DB, I'm sorry. That's what I meant to say.
So confused.
Yeah, no. Wait, did I miss somebody in my freaking thing? Okay, maybe I am on crack. I'm sorry.
So
I typed his freaking number in wrong in my rankings. He is number 9.
Okay. So who is your number 8?
My number 8 was Julius Brents. I was counting the names as I was reading down. I was like, wait, so some, like, when I was reading them out loud, then I was looking at the numbers I have next to him, and I just doubled up the number 8.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that's what happened.
I wanted to talk quickly on DJ Turner. This was a guy that a lot of people have skyrocketing up their boards. He had a fantastic combine, a 4.26. What'd you think overall? Where does he grade for you?
Yeah, he's got an awesome athletic profile. I do have him as a 2nd round pick, or a 3rd round pick. I'm sorry, day 2. I keep saying that. Somebody that I would, very comfortably take in the 3rd round. I think he has good upside. Cornerback 13 overall, my 83rd ranked player. Someone that is definitely going to continue to rise as we get closer and closer. And that kind of spot in mid to late 3rd round would be a great value because the athletic profile really is there. But if he were, if you're a little bit bigger, it would help if he was a bit taller. But 5'10" is just not what you're looking for out of a corner. But everything else that he does, I think he does it all at least relatively well. I think he's someone you can trust in just about any coverage situation. I think he does well breaking up passes. I think he's a sound tackler. But again, all these things need to continue to improve before I really trust him as one of my guys. But having the athleticism and just kind of seeing the flashes that he put on in Michigan, I think there's a possibility.
Yeah, I agree. I've got him as a 3rd round pick as well. I've got him as my 92 overall player. You mentioned the athleticism. It's all there. My only worries, and the reason he wasn't in my top 10, was he lacked a little bit of physicality, as well as it always felt like when he was going up for those contested catches, it felt like there were 30-70 balls for him. It felt like the other wide receiver often was able to come down with those. So Just some things he needs to work on, but I agree with you. I mean, the athleticism being there, he's got a decent ceiling.
Yeah, I do agree overall. I again, I would happily take a shot at him as the Lions. You know, being a Michigan University product, someone that's going to be in that third round slot, their Lions are going to be looking to draft a corner. If they don't go early, like that'd be the perfect guy to take a shot on.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's talk about safety now. We've got 5 that we're going to be covering here, and then we will do our top 10 DBs after we do all of our analysis here. But Chase, what do you think about the safety class overall?
It's a safety class. Is that good enough?
Um, well, maybe I'll give my thoughts and then you can add upon them
Yeah,
whether you agree
yeah.
or disagree.
I'll let you go ahead.
Because a lot of people talked about the safety class on it being really bad this year. And the fact that there's one guy that stands out above the rest to a lot of people, and I would assume it's probably pretty similar for us. But the rest of the class really falls off hard. So does that make this one guy go even higher than he should, or maybe drop a little bit lower than he should? There was a lot of questions about that. I think overall, when I was going through the safety class, the massive drop off between the number 1 guy and then your next number 2, number 3, whatever it might be, is there, but I don't think it's as massive as a lot of people are saying. Like, I've seen people talking your safety 2 should be late 3rd round, maybe even day 3, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I've got 7 safeties that should go in the top 2 days for me. I think there's 6 guys that are really battling amongst each other to be that safety number 2. And so I'll talk about that when we get there. But I feel like overall, the safety class is getting a little bit more hate from other people than it does for me.
Well, it's getting hate for me because I've got 1 in the first round. Then my next closest is but 1 in the first round. The next closest is ranked 73 in my class. So someone I've got graded in the 3rd round, and I think like, he's solid. If I gotta trust him as like my go-to safety, no, I'm not. So if you need a safety, like there's one guy you clearly want to go for me, and unless you're a team that can afford to take a shot, because like that's kind of how the rest looks for me.
Well, it feels like to me that this class is very outside of the number 1 guy. It's very specialist oriented. I feel like a lot of these guys have defined roles at the next level. So there's some guys in here that are true strong safety. There's some guys that have incredible range but lack the physicality, and they're more your free safeties. And then, there's some that you want a little bit more closer to the line of scrimmage, be a box safety, whatever it might be. They don't have the, ability to be multiple different safety positions. They don't have that variation in their game, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because if you just specialize that player in what they're good at and make them the best strong safety they can, make them the best free safety that they can, I think they can still be really good players.
And that's fair. I don't know if I'm going really good. Like guys that can start, sure, but like really good, like super high end, I don't know. It just not enough really popped for me on film. I think there's guys that can start, but again, like as I mentioned, guys that I would rather a team just continue to work with and give them maybe a year, maybe give them half the season, whatever, how long it'll take. Just let's let them kind of figure their stuff out, and then give them a shot later on.
Yeah, and Chase, going through this type of process with me, you kind of get a feel of what kind of players I like. I get a feel of what kind of players you like. And I think very often I would go towards players that are a little bit more refined, have a little bit of a safer floor. When it comes to the safety class, that is completely out the window, because there's a lot of projection with my top 5, and I can't wait to talk about it. So let's hop in to your top 5.
Sure, I can do that. Number 1, I have Brian Branch out of Alabama. Number 2, Antonio Johnson out of Texas A&M. Number 3, Quindell Johnson out of Memphis. Number 4, Jordan Battle, also out of Alabama. And number 5, Jamie, whatever the hell it's pronounced, I don't know, Robinson out of Florida State.
All right, my 1 through 5 go as follow. Brian Branch out of Alabama. I've got Jartavius Quan Martin out of Illinois. Christopher Smith out of Georgia. J.L. Skinner out of Boise State. And then one name that you mentioned a little bit earlier, Sidney Brown out of Illinois at the safety position.
Look at you, huh?
Absolutely. So let's talk about it. Let's first hop into Brian Branch out of Alabama. This is the guy, a lot of people, I would say, consensus has Brian Branch as the number 1 safety in this class.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be kind of surprised if he didn't, because I think, as I mentioned, the drop-off is pretty steep. You know, when it comes to his size, he's more of like a corner build. So, you know, you like to see him get a little bit bigger, you know, maybe add a couple pounds and just see if he can really beef up a bit more. And his athleticism doesn't wow me. It's not bad. He can move laterally. He's got some speed, but like it's nothing that quite wows me. But when it comes to everything else he does, I think he is a just elite run defender. I think he is going to be one of the premier run defenders, especially at the safety position, like day one in the NFL. I think he does such a strong job in it. And when it comes to general coverage, he holds up very well too. I think he can, you know, cover receivers if needed. Obviously, if he covers, you know, tight ends or someone that's running underneath routes, he's going to have a lot more success there too in coverage. But man, if you're a team, if you have to be going against a run heavy team, I think he's going to have a field day, because he just. I really don't think I saw him lose a single tackle in the film I watched. Every time he grabbed a guy, they went down. Like it was impressive, and he laid a big boom. Like it looked very fun on film. And if you need a safety, like this is your dude, because I think you can kind of trust him, no matter what kind of system you're running, because he can be that more coverage safety. He can be more of that run support guy. Like it's all there, but really, I think he's the only one that has like legit dude upside.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the defensive back class overall, I've got Brian Branch as the best tackler easily. Like, there's some great tacklers in the corner class. There's some other really nice tacklers in this class, or in the safety class, but I mean, it's not even close. I mean, Brian Branch, he gets his hands on you, and you're not moving, that's for sure. You mentioned his athleticism. It's not fantastic. I agree there. I don't think he can be a true rangy ball hawk type free safety that you can see out of the likes of Atlanta's Jesse Bates and others. But I think overall he's going to be really good at the line of scrimmage. If you got to play him in slot every now and then, he's going to be able to do that as well. Just overall, a really fantastic player. Great change of direction. And I love him at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, again, just echoing a lot of, you know, we feel the same way. And again, at the line of scrimmage, like he's gonna explode. Like he's just gonna murder running backs. And if you use him, you know, rushing the quarterback, it kind of, you know, like kind of just that sneaky kind of blitz role. I think he could kind of demolish quarterbacks too. So teams, don't be afraid to use Brian Branch, you know, heavily across the board, you know, from day one, because I think he just makes an immediate impact.
For sure. Let's now talk about your number 2, Antonio Johnson.
Yeah, and you know, it is a shame because it is a large drop off. So I'm going to try not to be too negative, because you know, when you're going between such different players, it kind of feels like negatives. But Antonio Johnson is still a very strong prospect, all said and done. Like, he's still someone that, you know, he has legitimate or NFL upside. I think he's someone that can start. For me, he's kind of a do-it-all type of guy. I'd like to see him kind of specialize a little bit more. I think he does a pretty good job in the run, but when it comes to like his coverage, I think he does it all nicely. His athleticism is weak. His power is a bit weak. He's not a very like strong tackler, but he does an all right job. So as a safety, especially if you're going to, you know, kind of be in that more strong safety role, those are pretty important things, you know, in terms of being a sure tackler. If you can't wrap up a guy, that's pretty disappointing. But I think he can at least get to, you know, like to the ball carrier in the running game, as long as he can find a way to kind of, and, you know, improve that technique, find a little more power, maybe strengthen up a bit, and kind of, you know, lay a bigger boom, you know, blow up offensive lineman maybe a little bit, then he'll have more success. But when it comes to his coverage, as I said, I think it is all solid. You can use him against receivers. I think he would have, you know, I think he would have much better success against tight ends or, you know, maybe some slower receivers. But all in all, just solid do it all type guy. You can use him if needed as a rookie, but I also wouldn't really just throw him into battle.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I have him as my number 7 safety, and he is one of the 6 battling it out to see who is that next guy. I still do have a day 2 grade on him. However, he is the lowest of the 6 for me. I think you're right on the head with it. Is he doesn't specialize at anything. He's not fantastic at anything. He's solid in coverage. I'd like to see him play zone coverage at the next level rather than, having to play more heavy man coverage. I think he'd be a little bit better when it comes to that. And then also I'd like to see him tone back the aggression just a little bit, because at times he gets over aggressive. He just takes bad angles, misses tackles completely. I think if he can refine that a little bit, that would do him well. So, he's got the size, he's got the length that I think could do, some nice things, but overall, I tend to favor the guys who can be more specialists.
Yeah, no, for sure. I can agree kind of with what you're saying there. And before we move on, I do want to say it's about a different player. This is about Sidney Brown, because I was kind of looking at my rankings, see where I had him compared to the rest of my safeties, double check. And if I had him as a safety, he would be my safety number 2, by the way. But I just have him profiling a bit more as a corner. So when the time comes, we'll talk about him. So we'll just keep that in mind.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about his teammate now. Out of Illinois, Jartavius Martin went by Quan Martin while he was over there with Illinois. And Illinois had some fantastic defensive backs. Sidney Brown, Devin Witherspoon, Quan Martin. And I believe that Quan Martin is the best athlete on the Illinois defense. Sidney Brown, fantastic athlete. Devin Witherspoon, really nice athlete. Might not be elite, but he's there. And when you look at Quan Martin, geez, these numbers pop off the screen. A 44-inch vert. He ran in the 4.3s when it comes to his 40-yard dash. The speed, the quickness, fluidity, explosiveness, everything is here for Quan Martin. I think he's a little bit more of a raw player. However, I think he's just got incredible range. I think he can be one of those free safeties at the next level that he's just going to be able to, if he can read the play right, he's going to be there. He's got that range. I think he can be one of those ball hawk type players. He didn't do it at an extremely high level. He wasn't, Jair Brown, who led the nation in interceptions over the last 2 years with 10. He didn't do that. However, he had interceptions in his career. He looked good while doing it. And so I'm excited to see what he can do at the next level if he's used as that true free safety. I don't love him, playing slot corner or anything where you have to be heavy in man coverage, because he does tend to bite really hard against good route runners. I also think that he's not fantastic in the run game or even putting pressure on the passer, because he's got the athleticism, but the strength not necessarily there. And that's why I think he tends to lean even more free safety for that reason. So range, lack of, strength, I think he's there for the free safety position.
So it's not a guy that I have a ton of notes on. I didn't give him an official grade because I didn't focus on him slowly with the other DBs in this room. So I don't want to speak too much on him and say one thing or the other without being fully confident in it. So a lot of this I'm gonna trust your word. I'm gonna go back and watch him and then kind of get some more thoughts on him this week. But just brief notes. I really think he complemented that DB room really well. I think that trio was super strong. And the snaps that I saw where he stood out a little more to me was kind of actually more in the run game. I saw him a little more often, making a couple more plays, especially compared to the other DBs. I didn't focus super heavy again. So that's really all I'm going to say. If I had to guess, he's probably someone that'll end up, late day 2, early day 3, just based on what I very briefly saw. But who knows? Maybe I'll be surprised.
Yeah, I think when you throw on a little more tape, you'll just see the first thing that sticks out is how fluid he is as a player. I talked about it, or I don't know if I did talk about it with Christian Gonzalez. I meant to, but Christian Gonzalez, one of those players that just glides around the field. I think that Quan Martin does the same thing. It looks so smooth, looks so effortless. and I'm excited to see what he can do at the next level. But I believe your number 3 is the same type of situation for me, where just not much info.
That'd be Quindell Johnson.
Yes. Yeah, I actually did not take one peek at him.
Interesting. Well, you should, because he's pretty solid. He's someone that, is, if I had to choose one safety riser, I think he's it for me. So when we kind of turn on the film, his size, it's very solid. You're not going to see some athletic freak, and you're not going to see some absolutely powerful corner, but I think he reacts incredibly well. I think he's one of the better reacting defensive backs in this class. I think he understands the play. The only problem is he's not really elite anywhere else. Like he's a good enough cover guy. He's good enough in the run game. He's he's a pretty good tackle. Like all those things he's pretty good at, but he's not necessarily at. He put up some numbers in college. He kind of did pop up on the stat sheet, but I just don't know where exactly I'm going to use him in the NFL. It probably more in that free safety role, I'd have to guess, because like it just kind of seems like that he's not elite enough to the run defender, just kind of solid. I liked enough of what I saw where it's this kind of an upside thing where I saw enough flashes in each aspect of the game where it's like, all right, this could really become something down the road. But I think he's like nowhere near starting. He's late day 2 for me, just because like you're not going to get a day 1 impact. It's a guy that you're going to have to take some time to work with. If you can get him behind a higher end safety in the league, I think that helps a ton too. Just kind of learn from him and see what they do, especially against a cover guy. Let him kind of hone in on those skills, and who knows, maybe a year or two he can be someone that's pretty impactful.
Yeah, I'll have to take a peek at him, because I know absolutely nothing aside from the fact that he's a senior, plays for Memphis, and he didn't participate in the combine, which makes me sad, because I would have liked to see what the athletic score looked like.
Yeah, no, it is a shame. Like on film, like he looked like he didn't look like unreal. I like not crazy speed, not completely fluid, but like he looked good enough.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, my number 3 is Christopher Smith out of Georgia. I think this is one of the most underrated players in this class right now. I think a lot of people will look at him, go, not a great athlete, little bit older of a player, but I mean, this guy is an absolute general for this Georgia Bulldogs team. The IQ is off the charts, extremely good production at Georgia. He was constantly the safety blanket of that defense. Not many times did it break, but when it did, Christopher Smith came in clutch. And with him not being an incredible athlete, you think about how do things mess up for him? And I think when you look at other players that aren't incredible athletes, maybe they can't get to the position they need to be at the right time. Maybe they don't have the fluidity to stick with players, whatever it might be. The thing that Christopher Smith does to negate that is the ability to just read the quarterback. There were so many plays where it seemed like an athlete of his style is not in that play, but he saw it 2 seconds before that other guy, and he's already there. He saw everything. He was fantastic when it comes to his ball skills, constantly breaking things up. He had multiple interceptions, including, I think it was against TCU. He had a 76-yard pick 6. Maybe it was against Ohio State. I can't remember now. But, I mean, this is a guy who is not being talked about. And in a weaker draft class, if you're going to get a guy who can be a true general in the backfield, a guy who is going to know exactly what the other team is doing, that's what you're going to get out of Christopher Smith. And I'm excited to see what he can do. But I will say, some things that he's just not fantastic at, like I said, athlete. When it comes to man coverage, not great either. He can tend to get beat pretty bad. So if you keep him back there in zone, let him just assess the play, I think he's going to be fine.
So here's what I got for you. When it came time to kind of prioritizing who I wanted to watch for safety, because I knew it just like it was kind of a solid class at best. I saw the Athletics as like I'm lowering him on my priority list, and I just didn't have enough time to get to him because the Athletics really just did not seem anywhere up my alley. So I really don't have much I can say about him other than the fact that if you're not a absolutely high-end, dominant producer who does things incredibly well despite your athleticism. I don't generally feel super awesome about you, especially in a position like that. So I'm not going to say how I feel about him directly without watching him, but the athletics, they don't give me a good like initial feeling.
That's fair, but he was a really good producer for Georgia.
Yeah,
So
I know that is like that helped. That's something like it helps him, but I just like I don't know, and until I watch if he stands out one way or the other. That's really what I'm saying here. So I don't want to talk on him, but I think there were some better producers in the class, so I kind of focused, and his athletics were, for lack of a better term, just abysmal.
ow, come on now. Don't say that.
Dude, I'm looking at his NFL draft buzz page right now, just trying to really just remember everything that I had, and he was in the 2 percentile for his 3 cone.
I'd rather him than Jordan Battle's athleticism.
I I think I'm going to disagree, honestly.
Because Jordan
I
Battle, we know, not a.
again, yeah, no, I know that, but again, like I didn't watch him, so I don't know. But just Jordan Battle, from what I watched, I liked his athleticism better than what I'm reading. You know what I mean?
Yeah, fair enough. All right, let's talk about your number 4.
Jordan Battle,
Oh,
good timing, eh?
yeah.
Yeah, so I got 2 Bama DBs in my top 5, and again, he would be my number 5 if I counted Sidney Brown as a safety, but I'm counting him as a corner, and we'll talk about that as the time comes. I think my notes, solid overall. His best asset is his power, as I think he can kind of really lay the boom on guys, but just everything else is just kind of like solid overall. Like he's solid overall in college or coverage, excuse me. Solid in the run game, has fine ball skills, nothing overwhelming. And when it comes to athleticism, again, I think it's not very good. At best, it's fine. So all that combined, I think he's just kind of that dude that maybe he's like a rotational safety. Maybe someone you try to develop down the road. Maybe I don't know. He's not very like large at 6'1", 209, but maybe he benefits from losing a couple pounds to see if he picks up that speed, athleticism a little bit. I don't know. I don't know what the case is, but it really speaks to what I think of this class, where I think he's well rounded enough, like that it's worth a day 2 type grade, a late day 2, because he can get on the field and using him in the right situation where you're not going to make him run around the field, not going to make him move too much laterally. It's basically just putting him in zone coverage, I think, is kind of where he can have some success. But if you got to use him in like any other asset, like if you got to worry about having him cover a speedier receiver or making those big crossfield plays, like it's just not happening.
Yeah, I've got Jordan Battle with a day 3 grade. That's what I have for him. A big bulky safety that's best coming downhill, quick and instinctive when covering screens, flats, other safety blanket routes. Battle can help plug up holes when facing the run, and as a solid tackler. However, he does have issues at times squaring up with opponents, allowing them to get out of his hands. Battle does not have the lateral agility you would like to see out of someone you can trust to cover, and he tends to get beat somewhat easily. And then I said he's more of your true strong safety type of role. So I think overall, just line of scrimmage, nice. He can be a contributor. Outside of that, not really sure.
Yeah, no, that's generally fair enough. And it's again, I think he's something that can play if needed day 1, which is basically the only reason I have this day 2 grade on him.
I now have at my number 4, J.L. Skinner out of Boise State. I mean, this guy is huge at 6'4", 209. A true strong safety that has size, athleticism, strength, and aggression to be that guy. He's a great tackler and is great when defending the run. He can be a little aggressive and take bad angles and give up a big play. His coverage skills aren't great and should never be relied on. However, around the line of scrimmage or coming downhill, one of the best in the class.
That all your notes on him?
Yes, sir.
Generally, like we've all had a bit more on all these other, or we all, but you and I have had a bit more on all these other DBs. So those were a bit shorter. And it's funny enough because I don't have like a ton of notes on them either. Like my notes are a bit shorter compared to all the other guys. And I'm gonna agree with a lot of what you said. I have him as my number 6 safety, so I don't think he's terrible, but I also do have him as a day 3 prospect, one of the highest day 3 prospects I have. He's in the top 3 in that aspect. Because really, the problem is his play rec and anything but run defending, I think is just atrocious. I think he reacts solid into the run game because he's being aligned that way. I think he's being aligned closer to a linebacker than just a safety. From what I watched, and so you already kind of know that's when it's coming. That's what he's going to do. But if it comes to reacting in terms of what he's going to do in coverage, like it just doesn't happen. I don't think he responds to routes well. I don't think he can keep up with guys. Like it's just got to get much better. Mm-hmm. But he can lay a big boom. I think he is a solid overall tackler. So someone that I think maybe he's a very good special team guy that can also play safety when needed, maybe a little bit more development. But I'm just like, yeah, like he's fine, but that's really about it.
Yep. Let's not talk about your number 5.
So my number 5, Jamie. I still know if it's Jamie or Jamie Robinson. I don't even know. It doesn't matter. He's late day 2, early day 3 for me. So who cares? I don't even want the Lions drafting him, so I don't need to worry about his name. But small, undersized for a safety, kind of shorter arms. Maybe someone that you could argue would be a cornerback if he had better athleticism, but he doesn't. So he's not really going to play that role. But I think he does do a pretty good job, actually. Like with his power, I think he's got some good strength despite that size. I think he can kind of truck a dude and really lay a big hit when needed. I think he responds to routes well. I think he does a pretty good job in coverage, which again, if it wasn't for his lack of athleticism, he would be like a pretty good cornerback. And then on top of that, he does wrap up well from what I saw and reacted solid in the run game. But really, just because of his smaller size and lack of athleticism, it's going to be kind of hard for me to say where he succeeds the most. Like I don't think any of those defensive back positions are like truly built for him.
Yeah, I mean, another one of these players that I think is really good down by the line of scrimmage, but is kind of a liability when it comes to his coverage ability. I said I think he'd be nice as a box safety, but more specifically, I think he'd be really nice on special teams as well because he is a really good tackler. I think he's really good against the run, and I think he can cover tight ends a little bit. High IQ, can also blitz off the edge, but that's kind of where everything ends there. Not a phenomenal athlete. When it comes to coverage, let me read exactly what I had for coverage because I said it needs some work, tends to get pretty handsy, and looks all over the place when he's in coverage. So that's not great when you don't know what you're doing.
So we felt a bit differently in coverage. Like I thought he was a little bit stronger than kind of what you're portraying it as. I think he reacted, not elite by any means, but I think he reacted well. And when it comes to man coverage, maybe he's not going to go out and just kind of shut down a guy. But I think in zone he can react well enough to disrupt the play, maybe not go up there and shut down a guy or grab 100,000 interceptions, but enough to disrupt the play, kind of drop into a zone where he's going to kind of eliminate passing the ball into that part of the field. I think he's good enough to do that.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, hopefully he is. I hope all these players are fantastic at the next level, but right now I think he fits really nicely as a special teamer on day one.
Yeah, I agree. I think most of these safeties that if you're gonna want to impact day one, you got to find a way to make it work at special teams. Otherwise, a couple guys maybe they can get used, interchangeably, and then Brian Branch is Brian Branch.
Yes, of course. Sidney Brown, my number 5 out of Illinois. Really nice athlete, top end speed, has some good explosiveness and strength. I think he needs to get better against the run and needs to get better when it comes to his tackling ability. I think coverage overall is solid. I think he's pretty instinctive. And against tight ends and running backs, I think he can be an absolute home wrecker. I think, if you're going to throw a running back out to the flat, it's going to be loss of yards with Sidney Brown there. However, I think the one thing that has me here at safety rather than, a corner is when I see him when it comes to his athletics, I think he is more of a moving train where it takes him just a little bit to get up to that top speed. I don't think he's necessarily a twitchy athlete that's going to be able to change direction on a dime. And so that's why I think he's more of a safety. Let him sit in zone, let him sit back, let him read the play, and let him shoot, go straight forward with his speed I think he'd be best there. So I think overall just needs to work on some things at the next level, but with the athleticism that he has, I mean, he's going to be able to become a prominent guy if he can work on some of his flaws.
Yeah, and as I said, he'd be my safety number 2, and he'd be in the second round. Even though he'd have some slight grade adjustments converting from corner to safety for me, he still would be kind of right in that range. And what it comes down to me is, his height, it's going to, hold him back a little bit from being a very impactful safety at 5'10", but it's not the end of the world by any means. And when it comes to his athleticism, I think he has very good athleticism to the point where he can succeed as a cornerback, in my opinion. I think he can keep up with just about anybody and react relatively well to routes. And then, when it comes to being a safety, if he has to go, pressure guy in the run game or do whatever they might ask him around the safety position, I think he has every athletic ability to just do that with ease. But what makes me want to call him a corner more than a safety is his coverage skills to me are better than his his run skills. And I really do wish he were a better tackler. I wish he reacted better to the run. I wish he could lay more of a boom. I wish he could shed those blocks a little bit more. But he doesn't do that enough for me as a safety, where if you use him as a corner, he doesn't have to worry about that as much. And I think you can match him up with most receivers and be just fine. So to me, I see him more as a corner, but if you want to call him a versatile defensive back, then I've got no problem with that.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, it's been a long episode. Let's get to our top 10 defensive backs, including safeties and corners, and then we can let our lovely listeners go for the day, night, morning, whatever it might be, because it's getting late here even. So let's hit those top 10.
All right, so number 1, Devon Witherspoon, or I'm listening to colleges. Number 2, Christian Gonzalez. Number 3, Emmanuel Forbes. Number 4, Brian Branch. Number 5, Joey Porter. Number 6, Deontay Banks. Number 7, Travion Hodges-Tomlinson. Number 8, Cam Smith. Number 9, Julius Brents. Number 10, Sidney Brown.
All right, my top 10 is Devon Witherspoon. Number 2, Christian Gonzalez. Number 3, Joey Porter. Number 4, Deontay Banks. Number 5, Brian Branch. Number 6, Cam Smith. Number 7, Tyreek Stevenson. Number 8, Keely Ringo. Number 9, Emmanuel Forbes. And number 10, Quan Martin. There we go.
So we've got a relatively similar top 10 DB group. There's I think 2 or 3 differences all said and done. So that's not too shabby.
Yeah. The viewers are looking back right now. They're like, they had 5 differences. I don't even remember.
I don't think it was 5. So looking in mine, you didn't have Julius Brents, you didn't have Hodges-Tomlinson in your top 10, and I think that was it. Because because Sidney Brown, Cam Smith, Deontay Banks, Joey Porter, Brian Branch, frickin' what the hell was it? Emmanuel Forbes, Christian Gonzalez, Devon Witherspoon. That's 8 that we all have the same, right?
I didn't have Sidney Brown in my top 10.
Oh, okay. Then we got 7 that are the same.
I think I think I've got 4 in here that you don't have.
I thought, did you not say the same names? Who am I missing here?
I don't think you have Cam Smith, or do you?
I do.
Oh, okay.
I do. He's my 8.
So then, 3. Tyreek Stevenson, Keely Ringo, and Quan Martin versus Sidney Brown, Julius
Tomlinson,
and Hodges-Tomlinson. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough.
Not bad. All right. Well, that's going to do it for the show, and that's going to do it for our draft rankings. We're going to continue to grind a little bit more, and make sure to head over to our Twitter the week before the draft, because we're going to have top 10 graphics for every position group coming out. It's going to be an exciting time leading up to it. Next week, we're doing my guys, and then the following week, we're doing a mock draft. So it's going to be a fun time here over at the WNP Sports Pod. So make sure you stay up to date. And you can do that on Twitter at WNP Sports Pod. It's again on Twitter at WNP Sports Pod. If you want to stay, or if you are listening on YouTube, if you could please give us a like, comment, subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Hit the bell to turn on notifications. And down in the comments below, let us know who your number 1 defensive back is. If you're listening on a podcast platform, if you could please give us a 5-star rating and a follow, we'd really appreciate that. Thanks so much for coming out. And as always, we're not professionals.